Which is What If Naruto, Ino and Jiraiya vs. the Mysterious Pervert of Konoha Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Naruto had just left the pleasure of his beloved. I am of course speaking of Ichiraku Ramen. What else? Aw man, that hit the spot even better than usual, he said to himself as he strolled through the streets of the Leaf Village, absent-mindedly rubbing his stomach, feeling very satisfied with his daily 9 bowls. Naruto, a surprised, but friendly voice greeted, capturing his attention. He stopped in his tracks and turned to face the beauty. Knew it was you, no one else wears that much orange, Ino told him, sticking her tongue out playfully. Oh, hey Ino, what's up? If you don't mind, walk with me if you want to chat, I'm kind of late as it is. Naruto shrugged. Sure, I don't have anything to do anyway. I was just going to train for another hour or two, he claimed, resting his hands behind his head in a relaxed fashion, coming to her side and matching her pace. I guess it can't hurt to talk to Ino for a little, I don't see her very often after all. You sure do that a lot, you know that, don't you ever just go and do stuff for fun? She inquired. Naruto thought about it a moment and laughed it off sheepishly. No, not very often I guess. Eat, train, eat again, train, eat, sleep. Ino's sweat dropped. I don't know what else to do anyway, he commented, scratching his chin. I really don't have any hobbies or things I've been wanting to do. Oh, wait, outside of trying to get a date with Sakura, that is. Ino laughed amusedly. Well, I'm actually meeting up with Sakura right now, she smirked deviously. Oh really? Cool. Yeah, Ino continued, smirk growing wider. Maybe you can ask her out right now and steal her away from me. Naruto didn't say anything for a second, in thought apparently, and Ino was doing her best not to ruin her scheme by busting up in gut-clenching laughter. If you're sure you don't mind, I guess I could try. But you know how she is, she'll probably hit me, call me an idiot and then say no, he reminded somewhat depressingly. Oh come on, where's that Naruto I know that never gives up? Are you telling me you don't love your Sakura anymore? She teased. No, of course I do. Prove it, she challenged. He raised an eyebrow at his fellow blonde. All right, how? Ask her to spend a beautiful and passionate evening with you when we arrive at our destination. Naruto blushed. I will definitely not, she'll castrate me or something, ya know. Ino giggled. Well, I have to admit that is a bad choice of words, but it's not my job to write your lines for you. By the way, you never mentioned where this destination was anyway. Ino brushed her bangs out of her sight and huffed. You're on a need-to-know basis, Naruto. Don't worry, we're almost there. Naruto sighed, figuring it didn't really matter since he'd probably just leave her and Sakura after she declines another date and punches him to go train like he originally planned. So in the end, why should he care where they were going? Besides, if Ino said they were almost there, they were close. Turning the corner, they continued down the road in silence, both having a hard time thinking of something else to talk about since neither knew each other particularly well to begin with. Ah, and we're here, Ino announced, as the two stopped walking in front of their destination. Now, head on inside and ask Sakura out, she ordered, barely containing her urge to cackle senselessly at the look on the Uzumaki's face. She's in the bathhouse, INNOOO. The blonde girl in question finally let herself go in a laughing fit at his expense, supporting herself against the fence. You convinced me to come with you just to do this, didn't you? He shouted accusingly. You're evil. Eventually recomposing herself, Ino smiled at the irritated orange-clad shinobi. It was all in good fun. I thought you of all people could respect a prank. Besides, I didn't really do anything, and for the record I didn't decide to set you up for that until you brought her up in the first place. Naruto sighed. It's fine, then he chuckled slightly. I guess I had that one coming, I should have pressed you harder when I asked where we were going. Ino giggled in response. Well, I'm sure she's wondering what's been taking me so long. See you around, Nar. She was cut off as Naruto suddenly clamped a hand on her mouth and silently mouthed, Shish. Do you hear that? He whispered. Ino shook her head confusedly in response. Hear what? There it is again, Naruto thought. Seeing Ino's expression alter, it was confirmed that she heard it that time too. Motioning her to follow him, Naruto quietly moved to the corner of the fence and slyly looked around it before taking cover again. Just as I thought. So, Ino whispered, to his right, looking angry. No, furious at the prospect. It's some pervert again, right? Oh god, I never knew Ino could be so terrifying. Naruto thought, seeing the, I'm totally gonna make this guy impotent, look in the Yamanaka's usually intoxicating eyes. Wait, what? Sakura, Sakura, Sakura. He inwardly berated the random thought of attraction to Ino's eyes. Wait a minute, Sakura. It was at the point Naruto realized that Sakura was in the bathhouse and that perverted bastard was watching her. Worse, he finally replied. Pervy sage, yep, much worse than some random peeping Tom. Ino gave him a look of disgust. Griot, so, what are we going to do? He's your sensei, and your responsibility. Well, to be honest, I usually let him do what he wants, Naruto admitted. What? Shish, Naruto urged, covering her mouth again. He waited a few seconds before removing it and carefully peeking around the corner to see that Jiraiya was so lost in mumbling screw-up things to himself that he didn't even hear her outburst. Fully returning to cover again, he sighed out of relief and was met with Ino's glare. What do you expect? He shrugged. I can't devote my life to watching pervy sage and stopping him from doing this crap all the time, now can I? Ino's intense glare rested on him for a number of seconds before she huffed in annoyance and it dissipated. I guess not, but you're doing something this time, she demanded, glare instantly returning. I'm going in there, Naruto, me, so he is not allowed to be doing this right now. Don't worry, Naruto chuckled. I wasn't going to look the other way this time. You said Sakura is in there already, right? I can't let him get away with that. Ino crossed her arms in an adorable pout. Oh, so it's okay if he sees me though. Naruto's sweat dropped. I didn't say that, it's just. Ino smirked at him deviously again. That's fine, I'll remember that, Naruto. If I ever catch Jiraiya doing that when I'm enjoying myself in there, I'll beat the crap out of him and you'll be next. She grinned. I'll hunt you down, Naruto. Oi, I thought we just agreed that I can't babysit him all the time. Someone has to pay for it. Why can't it just be him? Why me? 'Cause he's your responsibility. God damn it, Ino. What if I'm on a mission? The girl shrugged. I'll let that slide, I guess. Naruto's eye began twitching rapidly. Thanks a lot, pervy sage, thanks a lot. This is such a wonderful side benefit of your teachings. As if it wasn't bad enough that you do this in the first place. All right, so what should we do to him? He asked, calming down a bit. We confront him and beat him up, duh. Like any pervert, he's a Sannin, he reminded. So it's not that easy. And trust me, he's protective of his eye candy. Ino's eye twitched at that and Naruto continued. But we do have the element of surprise. Pervy sage can never focus when he's staring at a girl's anything, really. Okay, the Yamanaka nodded in thought and snapped her fingers. I know, we'll restrain him and alert everyone inside that someone's watching. Then all the girls will come out and crush him, including Sakura and her ferocious strength. Naruto nodded agreeably. One problem, if all the girls have nothing but a towel on and they beat pervy sage up, he'd enjoy it. Ino gaped at him. Is he really that up? Have you met him? Naruto raised an eyebrow. But I want Sakura to be the one to punch him. Ino insisted, knowing how much that would hurt. Besides Naruto, aren't you intrigued about the idea of Sakura annihilating your sensei in nothing but a towel? She teased menacingly. Naruto gulped and brought his hand to his face, only able to close one nostril in time to prevent his nose from spraying blood out. The other nostril expelled the liquid violently on Ino's t-shirt, likely creating a stain that would be a pain for her to get out. Naruto. All she got in response was a grin. That's so not cool. It was your fault that I did that. I don't want to hear it. Whatever, she scoffed, pushing the matter aside. So what do we do? Well, we just got to get creative, I guess. Have any jutsus that would come in handy? Naruto queried. Ino's face flushed momentarily, causing Naruto to raise a confused eyebrow at her. I would prefer it if I didn't have to venture my mind into that man's body. Naruto couldn't help but chuckle again. All right, hey, I know. Ino's face suddenly brightened. Why don't you summon some toads and have them pin him down for us? Naruto face-palmed. Seriously, who do you think provided me with the summoning contract in the first place? That would never work on him. And Rasengan is out of the picture too for the same reason. The two blondes stood there for a while in silence, trying to come up with something good when Ino was getting impatient. It's times like this I wish I knew a summoning jutsu that would teleport my lazy teammate over here so he can just immobilize my target for me. What other times could you possibly wish that? On missions that he's not with me, using my clan jutsu on people can at times be a drag in his own words, she elaborated, getting a laugh out of the male blonde. What's so funny? A third voice asked, approaching them out of the blue. Wait, Naruto, what are you doing here? Hey Sakura, he greeted cheerfully. Hi forehead, the other blonde greeted. Ino pig, she greeted, suddenly angry and glaring at Naruto. Was Naruto here before you? Passing by, damn, her voice is starting to sound more demonic than that bastard fox. He raised his hands up in defense. Whoa, calm down Sakura, I ran into Ino on her way here. Ino giggled at her friend's conclusions. Yep, it's true, but there is someone watching. A certain sensei of a certain someone's. What? Sakura screeched, seeing Ino's thumb directed at Naruto, meaning it could only be Jiraiya. After all, if it was Kakashi she wouldn't have needed to point a thumb at Naruto, she could have just said, your sensei. Where? He's right around this corner. We've been trying to. Before Ino could finish her explanation, Sakura had already raced around, catch the Sannin and broke a number of bones with very audible, crushing behemoth-like punches, causing both Naruto and Ino to pale a bit. Ya know, for once I feel bad for pervy sage when this happened, and I also think that fantasy you made me picture has effectively been ruined, Naruto commented. Ino just nodded wordlessly. Shortly after, Naruto and Ino were conversing with Sakura while she begrudgingly healed Jiraiya's injuries. So forehead girl, why were you leaving so soon? I was bored and got tired of waiting on you. It's no fun trying relax in there with no one you know to talk to. What took you? Oh, you know, my dad held me up at the flower shop longer than I expected. We were real busy. Then I ran into Naruto and told him if he wanted to chat he had to walk with me since I was already late, and we heard the old perv and spent a bunch of time trying to decide how to deal with him. Yeah, didn't think that talking to Ino for a few minutes would lead to me running into you, Sakura. Then he glanced down at the remains of Jiraiya. Are you pervy sage? Well, if you'd train less and spend more time with me, more interesting things would happen to you, Ino smirked. To Jiraiya's regret, Sakura halted her healing jutsu and Naruto's face suddenly felt really warm as the two members of Team 7 just stared at Ino awkwardly. What does she mean by that? Not how I intended for that to sound, Ino backtracked. Sakura and Naruto both blinked and seemed to slip out of the trance, and Sakura returned to healing the perv. Eventually Jiraiya was fully healed and able to talk again. I'm serious. You guys interrupted a very important mission. Yeah right, Naruto and Sakura spit back in unison. I really mean it. You can ask Tsunade herself. Oh, I will. Sakura scoffed. And she'll break everything I just broke when she finds out you were doing that instead. You don't understand. This was all surveillance. The Sannin claimed. That's the lamest excuse I've ever heard, Ino facepalmed. No kidding, Sakura seconded. Why even bother, pervy sage? We all know what you do. Damn it, listen to me. There's a pervert on the loose and Tsunade's been receiving a lot of complaints. Gee, I wonder who that could be. Jiraiya pinched the bridge of his nose. Tsunade's tasked me with catching him due to my expertise, he explained. Naruto openly laughed. Granny must have drank so much sake her brain wasn't able to process that all the complaints were about you. Ino and Sakura soon joined him in laughing at the Toad Sannin. I will prove it's not me. Naruto and his two kunoichi companions stared at him skeptically, then shared looks at one another, nodding. All right, how do you plan to do that? Sakura spoke for the group. Easy, Jiraiya assured. All you have to do is join me on my mission, and once we find him you'll know for sure that this was a real assignment and that it really wasn't me. The three pondered. Fine, Ino agreed. Ino was just telling me I should do something other than train all the time, so sure, why not? Naruto joined. On one condition, Sakura responded, narrowing her dagger glare on the Sannin. You won't be taking advantage of any more situations like this. Of course, why did I invite them? Why, but I'm getting a bit tired and feel like drowning myself in sake. So the four of us will meet up tomorrow and get to work on finding this guy, he told the teen shinobi. Now, he then added, no longer speaking to them but himself. Maybe Tsunade would like to drink with me, and do other things later. He mused with sparkling eyes. The others stared at him, deadpanned. So, pervy sage, Naruto broke him of his stupor, completely ignoring what was just implied about the current Hokage. Where are we supposed to find you tomorrow? Oh, here's as good of a place as any, I guess. Like hell it is, Sakura growled. You'd just make sure you showed up early before we were around for your surveillance. Damn it, was worth a shot. Outside the Hokage's tower then, he decided as he walked away from the others, giving a wave of farewell. The other three said nothing at first, until Naruto broke the silence by laughing to himself, gaining inquisitive looks from the girls. We just volunteered to help pervy sage catch a pervert. It's ridiculous, he explained, getting a light smile out of Sakura and Ino to chuckle a little at the thought as well. So, forehead, want to go back in there with me? Not really in the mood to after that. I guess you got a point there, Ino sighed. I'll go pay Shika or Choji a visit then. Haven't seen either of them in over a week. All right, take care Ino pig. Don't be late tomorrow. Bye, she bid, walking away. See ya tomorrow Ino. Wait, pervy sage never told us what time to be there. Ino stopped in her tracks and turned around as the three shared a deadpanned look. Wow, we're really stupid. No, he's really stupid. Sakura corrected. Naruto, find him and let us know when, could you please? Me, aw damn it, sure Sakura. She's got you wrapped around her finger doesn't she? Poor Naruto. Shut up Ino pig. I'll drop by each of your places later and tell you what he says, a blushing Naruto assured them and walked away before a smirking Ino could say anything else. After he was gone, Ino smiled at the still glaring Sakura. I'm off to see my teammates then, see ya. The blonde Uzumaki laid on the ground twitching slightly. I didn't say anything about it being a date, Sakura. Oh, I'm sorry, my bad, she apologized, making her hands glow green to tend to the bruise she inflicted on her teammate's head. Let's go then, I'll even pay for both of us because of this little misunderstanding, she offered. Geez, I tell her all I meant was dinner and not a date and she's instantly happy and offers to pay. No, that's fine, come on Naruto, I don't mind. I've been making a lot of extra at the hospital lately. That's not what I was talking about, he retorted, receiving a puzzled look from the Pinkett. Anyway Jiraiya told me we have to meet up bright and early. Apparently this mystery pervert is smart enough to make a few of his rounds while a lot of women are in their nightly garments and stuff. I'll see you at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Sakura blinked. 6. Okay, but what about dinner? Oh, sorry I can't now. Silly me, forgot I have to tell Ino still. He excused himself and walked off with his hands in his pockets. Yeah right, she thought. I guess he was more upset about me punching him than usual, she figured, feeling a little bad. Oh well, she shrugged. He'll forget about it by morning, besides it was just a misunderstanding, she decided, and went back inside her apartment. I'm sorry Naruto, but Ino's not home at the moment. Actually, come to think of it, Inoichi scratched his head. I have no clue where she is by now, she left to meet Sakura at the bathhouse several hours ago. There's no way she's still there. Oh that's right, she did say something about visiting Shikamaru and Choji. Okay thanks anyways sir, he said and began to walk away. Naruto, if you find her, tell her to get home soon, we're going to have dinner in a while here. Sure, no problem, Inoichi nodded in thanks to the other blonde and retreated back into the privacy of his house. Shikamaru's place is closer than Choji's, Naruto mused. I'll check there first. As he began walking towards the Nara compound, his thoughts drifted back to his little encounter with Sakura. I didn't have to make an excuse and walk out on her like that, she even offered to pay even though she knows how much I eat, what's wrong with me? Naruto frowned at those thoughts. Am I really defending her? She practically dented my skull just because she thought I asked her out. We're teammates. Teammates go have meals together all the time. Besides, aren't I close enough to her that she should be at least a little nicer about declining my invitations? He sighed in frustration. Whatever, I should just forget about this. He decided, entering the Nara district and working his way to where Shikamaru and his parents lived via rooftop. Upon reaching the house, he heard familiar voices coming from the balcony and walked over to it, finding Choji, Ino and Shikamaru together catching up a bit on what they'd been doing the past week. Hey guys, the Uzumaki greeted foxily, leaping onto the small deck landing between Ino and Choji scaring the former who squealed in surprise. Naruto blinked, had he really came so subtly and silent? He hadn't meant to. Naruto, you scared the crap out of me. Oops, my bad Ino, he scratched the back of his head sheepishly. Troublesome, sup Shikamaru, Choji, it's been a while since I've seen you guys. Hey Naruto, sorry about that but I've been really busy learning an advanced Akamichi clan jutsu. Choji explained with a hint of pride. When I manage to make a breakthrough on it I'll be on a whole new level than before. Nice, I've been training like crazy lately too. Well, I always do that though, right? He laughed. Eat, train, eat again, train, eat, sleep, Ino sarcastically recited, making Naruto laugh even harder while the other two members of Team 10 just stared confusedly, the joke lost on them. So, is this just a social call or what Naruto? If you actually need help from me or my dad or something don't hesitate to ask. Ino gawked at him in surprise. Did you just volunteer to work? I'm not that lazy, he sneered. But it's just that it would be far more troublesome if Naruto was afraid to ask us for a hand and does something real stupid on his own and gets hurt. He's the kind of guy who would definitely do that, the Nara pointed out. Naruto chuckled at his analysis. Yeah you do have a point there, but don't worry I'm actually here for Ino not you. He raised an eyebrow. You came to my house to see Ino. What, do you think we're more than friends or something? Choji laughed in their expense. Ino blushed. Shut up Shika, he came looking here cause he knew I said I was going to visit you guys today. 6 a.m. tomorrow Ino. Oh and I actually did drop by your place and check there first, your dad says dinner will be ready soon. See you later guys, I've gotta hit my favorite ramen stand. See ya Naruto. Choji bid farewell. Shikamaru raised an eyebrow but figured he'd just ask Ino. Lates. Until tomorrow then, Ino smiled and the Uzumaki took off. Naruto, Sakura and I have a mission tomorrow, sort of, she then explained. Mission, sort of, the guys inquired. Yeah, she giggled. It's pretty funny actually, we're helping Jiraiya track down a pervert within the village. Choji roared with laughter and Shikamaru even chuckled and let out an amused troublesome. Excellent, Jiraiya said with a clap of his hands. You're all here on time, as Sakura approached a few minutes early but being the last to arrive. Just because our sensei is Kakashi doesn't mean you should expect us to be 3 hours late, Naruto chuckled amusedly in agreement but the Sannin ignored her comment, wanting to get down to business straight away. The pervert is likely beginning my shared hobby right about now, so we need to get busy. All three of the teams gawked at him deadpanned, even though they were hardly surprised by his accurate admission. It just seemed ridiculous to be on a mission to catch a pervert while being under the command of a guy who enjoyed referring to himself as a super pervert. It just wasn't right. We'll split up in twos, one of you with me the other two on your own. The sooner we find this guy the better, I'm tired of the competition. Competition, Ino repeated with an eye twitch. Jiraiya shrugged, he's being talked about around the village more than I am. So, let me get this straight, you're not just a super pervert, but an attention whore too. She asked incredulously. What? No, of course not. I am a humble super pervert. Right, okay then. Naruto shook his head and snickered at their conversation, snapping Jiraiya back to the task at hand. Decide who's going with who, we meet back up here in 3 hours. But what if we actually find him? Sakura asked. You never told us. Jiraiya grinned. Don't assume it's a man. Pervy sage. Naruto's sweat dropped. You would be hoping all of this commotion is being caused by a girl. The Sannin cleared his throat to answer her nonetheless. If you encounter the pervert, you're authorized to apprehend them in Tsunade's words, by any means necessary. All right, that's enough for now. We better hurry up or we won't find them. Let's go, you old perv. Ino hurried the toad Sannin as Sakura and Naruto gasped in surprise that she actually chose to work with the Sannin over either of them. Wow, I assumed I would have had to go with him. Naruto stared. Sakura however was skeptical. What's she up to? It became clear the Haruno was right to feel that way, based on the wink Ino shot at Naruto before the two departed, mouthing something with her lips. You owe me. Let's get going, Sakura. Naruto smiled, trying to appear in a good mood even though he was still a little sore about their latest encounter. That pervert probably isn't going to turn himself in. Sakura followed the blonde without responding to that, instead addressing Ino. What was that about, her winking at you? Huh, I don't know, he played dumb. You can't lie to me, Sakura warned him. I know you too well, and you're not very good at it in the first place. I don't know whether to take that as a compliment or find it insulting. Both, Sakura laughed. Compliment as a friend, insult from one shinobi to another. Naruto sighed but appeared amused. As far as he was concerned, it was better to keep her off track than to let her. So, tell me, what's she up to? Ino would never choose to work with someone like Jiraiya for 3 hours instead of me, Naruto. Damn it, how should I know? Maybe she's mad at you. He tried, but Sakura just glared at him as they continued to walk. I just told you, you're terrible at lying to me. What are you hiding? Nothing, I swear. I don't even hang out with Ino. Just cause I ran into her yesterday and talked for a while doesn't make us best pals or something. Her glare crystallized as she grabbed his arm and pulled them both to a stop, staring at him threateningly. Naruto, the stern reply came and he had a feeling this conversation was about to head straight to hell if he kept playing this game with her. She didn't tell me anything, he reaffirmed, but if I had to guess, she did it so we'd be alone to encourage me into making a move on you, which I didn't plan on doing. Why would Ino care about that? I don't know, maybe she thinks we'd be a good match. Sakura scoffed. Yeah right. That did it. Something snapped. What the hell is your problem with me, Sakura? The tone of which he used was unlike any tone he'd ever spoken to her before. Yes, Naruto had spoken to her angrily or offended once or twice in the past, but this was beyond that. This was rage, pent-up aggression that was being subconsciously drawn on at her attitude at the very idea of being with him. She acted like the mere thought repulsed her, and it was what he'd wanted on the contrary for years. One can only be rejected so rudely and openly so many times before they feel the need to shake things off their chest. The Pinkett flinched at the cold tone. To say that was un-Naruto-like was understatement of the year. Answer me, you owe me that much. Sakura recovered from her initial surprise and the two engaged in a glaring match before she responded. I don't have any problem with you. What are you? Then why are you disgusted every time I even seem like I'm trying to get closer to you? I do not, she refuted. Oh yeah, he snarled. Well, how the hell am I supposed to take it the way you act? We can't be together, Naruto, we just can't. You're not telling me anything, you're just proving me right. You don't have any actual reasons why we can't give it a shot. We're teammates, it's unprofessional. Bullshit. Do you think I'm stupid? That didn't stop you from chasing Sasuke. He pointed a damning finger at her. That's not the same. How? I was in love with Sasuke before we even graduated. You were just infatuated with me at the time, she was sure to say. And, at the time, in order to acknowledge she believed it was possible he actually loved her now, but not back then. What kind of logic is that? Naruto deadpanned. It was rather strange of him to swear to much but he didn't give a damn at the moment. If I was just infatuated with you, the same goes for you and Ino with the bastard. You can't just say it's different. She frowned at her teammate. Don't compare Ino and I when it comes to Sasuke, she was only infatuated too, just like you with me. Oh right, Naruto rolled his eyes. Everyone's crush was infatuation except yours. It's true, she insisted. Ino moved on from Sasuke after he left the village, she got over it. I didn't, that's all the proof I need. I never got over you, so you're contradicting yourself. He yelled, so mad he didn't even care what embarrassing things he was admitting to her. Like it mattered, she'd known he liked her for years. You haven't gotten over it because, she stopped herself. Because, she averted his gaze, not really wanting to say this to him, but decided he was so mad already she would never have a more appropriate time to admit her opinion. You're immature, and there it was, what she really thought of his feelings towards her. For some reason, actually hearing her say that stung him into silence, and he settled for just staring at her. Listen, Naruto, I didn't want to hurt you like this but you flew off the handle. I won't date a teammate, period. The Uzumaki turned away, but had one thing to say before splitting up to work on their so-called mission. You'd do it for Sasuke. Jiraiya and Ino had been patrolling for an hour now. The Sannin was surprisingly taking the assignment seriously, as if some part of his pride were at stake. A bored Yamanaka couldn't help but wonder why her partner wasn't acting like his normal goofy self, leering at everything that moved. Lord Jiraiya, she said respectfully, seeing no need to refer to him as an old perv, when not in the presence of Naruto or Sakura. Besides, he wasn't acting like that at the moment. Her voice disrupted his thoughts and he turned to look at her. Huh. If I may ask, why is this making you so tense? Shouldn't it be child's play for a Sannin to catch some random pervert and hand him over to the Hokage? I mean, you weren't serious about being upset that he was having more rumors spread around than you, right? Jiraiya chuckled and stopped walking. She did as well. Actually that does upset me, but not for the reasons you're thinking. Seeing her inquisitive look he elaborated, I'm a pervert, it's true, not going to deny it, but I'm not a fool that slobbers over himself watching them blatantly out in the open. She shot him a deadpan look and was about to dispute but he raised up a hand to stop her. I do that on purpose, to make sure I have a reputation of that nature. Sometimes having a well-known, eccentric reputation comes in handy to a shinobi, so I broadcast my undesirable traits to the world. Do you really think a Jonin-level ninja can't find more subtle ways to spy on women? That's a really good point, she admitted. Why doesn't anyone else realize that? I prefer that they don't. Jiraiya smirked, but I'm sure a few see through it, kind of like how Kakashi reads porn everywhere he goes. My porn, he then added with satisfaction. Wow. And here Ino thought Jiraiya and Kakashi just didn't care what anyone thought of them because of the level of shinobi they were. Nope, they just shared what they did with the world for a negative look. I've been hunting for this guy for 3 days already. Jiraiya restarted their conversation as they began walking once more. He gets caught every day somewhere, but he manages to slip away before I get him. He doesn't even leave a trail behind. But wouldn't that mean he's a shinobi? Probably, not necessarily though. There are other professions with people who know how to cover their tracks. That's why I never said it was. Anyone who doesn't think I could go around watching people undress without being noticed are idiots. Hell, you're a chunin, you should be able to do it. Most of the village's shinobi have the capability to if they wanted. How comforting. Ino's sweat dropped. Jiraiya laughed. I speak only the truth. The fact he was expecting the culprit to be a shinobi was why he had to take it seriously. A shinobi that was perving on women and being caught every day was bad for the Leaf's image. Ironically, Jiraiya saw this as a problem. In his personal case, it wasn't such a big deal to him anyway because he perved on them in public settings like the bathhouse, and he also took missions that kept him away from the village for long extensive time periods like Naruto's recent training trip. This person, whoever he may be, was being seen, making his rounds at people's homes. That was far worse, that deprived people of their sense of security and it reflected badly on all Konoha shinobi. The fact he did it daily was an even larger issue. After a moment of silence passed between them, and another moment of wandering around aimlessly hoping for a lead of some kind to present itself, Ino noticed the neighborhood they were now entering. The Yamanaka flower shop was only a few blocks away from here. I'll be right back, she said, turning the other direction. What are you doing? Bathroom, just stick to the main streets and I'll find you easily. With that, the blonde and the white-haired split up. Once he was sure she wouldn't hear him, Jiraiya rolled his eyes and rambled about it. Women. 1 hour of walking around impatiently and she has to find an excuse to take a break. I'm sure there will be some kind of complication that impedes her from catching up right away. He then laughed, and then she'll apologize and if I act upset she'll beg for forgiveness with those damn puppy dog eyes, he predicted before his mood deflated, and I won't stand a chance, damn it. The Sannin was lifted from the depressing thought of what power the female gender had over him as his ears perked at the sound of a scream, a panicking high-pitched scream that indicated to him the pervert was nearby, well, the other pervert I should say. Jumping into shinobi mode, he sprinted past by several confused civilians, some of which were looking in the direction they'd heard the scream come from. Seeing a produce stand with an awning, he smirked and leapt onto it, ignoring the protest of a shopkeeper as he used it as a trampoline to get high enough to grab the edge of the roof and eased himself up. Good thing that supported my weight. If I ripped that marquee and splattered a bunch of fruit I would have looked like a complete dumbass. Being a notorious pervert was fine, but being depicted as stupid would not sit well with him. He leapt across a few rooftops before coming to halt, trying to figure out where he was going. Pinpointing the location of the commotion, he rushed towards the area, jumping across the rooftops full speed. He barely stopped himself from jumping a rooftop in the wrong direction when he spotted someone running in the corner of his eye, managing to skid to a halt and leapt off the building, pursuing the suspect. It became evident that the Sannin was faster than the other guy, as he gained ground on the black-clad male who recognized he was being followed by a fellow shinobi. as Jiraiya could now tell their target was indeed a ninja, and began attempting to lose the Sannin by snaking through clusters of buildings and streets in order to lose Jiraiya. Entering a sizable crowd of civilians and even some passing genin, Jiraiya feared he lost his prey, but then he spotted a swift burst of movement through his peripheral. He's hiding behind that crate, he processed, walking over to it. Judging by the way the workers were behaving, they hadn't noticed a shinobi ducked for cover behind it, but that wasn't surprising, they were just regular guys tasked with unloading crates of clothing for a department store after all. You can come out now, Jiraiya called out with authority, I know you're hiding behind those crates. This is great, I have him, I'll prove I was telling the truth to Naruto and the girls, rub it in their faces that I didn't need any help, and maybe even get some extra reward from Tsunade. Lord Jiraiya, the pervert recognized, and grabbed a kunai. Come on already, you're just wasting our time, I saw you move behind there. Jiraiya was more than a little shocked when what he assumed was a fellow Konoha shinobi launched a kunai that sailed past him and impaled itself in a street post. He almost grabbed the nearest civilian and jumped away to avoid the radius of the blast, but he realized it wasn't an explosive tag tied to it, but a picture. Whoa, those are a very nice pair of. The pervert bolted away from behind the crates, choosing to go the nearest direction that provided him something to obscure Jiraiya's vision. Meanwhile Jiraiya was momentarily slowed down. Instinctively he began his pursuit but stopped in order to retrieve the kunai with the sexy picture on it. After all, it was evidence. Unfortunately, the short time it took for him to retrieve it prevented him from catching up. Konoha had too many intersecting streets and buildings for the pervert to use against him. The trail went cold and fast, but he did secure something of use. Something that was rather nice to look at, but that was just a bonus. Nope, I didn't catch him, but he did throw this at me, he revealed, handing the kunai and sexy picture to Naruto without warning. Naruto raised an eyebrow at what was attached to the kunai, flipping it over to view the front side before having a prominent nosebleed. Damn it pervy sage, he muttered, shoving it in front of Sakura without looking, who in return rudely ripped it away from his hand unnecessarily, causing Ino to raise an eyebrow, but Naruto pretended to be oblivious to both of them. Why would the pervert throw a kunai with a picture at you? She gasped. Jiraiya scratched his chin in mock deep thinking, pictures are very distracting. Which is why he got away, Naruto pointed out. Jiraiya pouted, in my defense, I had to secure this evidence before continuing my pursuit and he was smart enough to block my vision with buildings and objects. Ino sighed, we probably would have got him if I hadn't gone to the bathroom right before this all went down. Sorry, oh well, Jiraiya replied in a cheerful voice. 3 days and I finally got something on him. Naruto, I want you three to go have that kunai and the picture taken for fingerprint examination. Have it compared to the records of everyone in our ninja rosters. I'm going out to drink, after informing Tsunade of today's developments of course. Alright, see you tomorrow, pervy sage. The sage waved as he walked away, satisfied with the result of the morning's incident and excited at the prospect of getting drunk after getting some good work in. I have somewhere to be, Sakura lied, tossing the picture kunai to Ino. I thought we would be done by now so I didn't leave my schedule open, bye. The pinkett began stalking off without another word, a confused Yamanaka staring at her back. Later forehead, Naruto didn't bother saying anything, well aware of where her attitude originated from. Let's go then, Ino, Naruto asserted, and was about to start walking when he realized he had no idea where they were supposed to go. Wait, who does fingerprints? The T&I crew. Ino stared at him like he'd lost it so he explained. Oi, I was away from the village for more than 2 years, it's been a long time and I didn't exactly pay attention to the boring stuff. Ino shook her head with an amused smile and lead the way. Yes, T&I does it, so could the hospital, and I think maybe the Decipher guys, but I'm not sure about the last one and it makes more sense to go to T&I than the hospital for a relatively unimportant domestic issue. So T&I it is then, great. Something wrong, to be honest Ibiki Morino is a bit creepy, but I'll be fine. She giggled, when I was a little girl, he really scared me and I'd usually try to stay in my room when he was around. What, Ibiki would go to your house? Yeah, he and my dad are co-workers, remember? Ibiki's in charge and my dad's his right hand. I know a lot of the people who are in T&I. Oh yeah, so this should be no problem at all, getting their help. As the conversation went dry, Ino examined the boy's body language and expression. She could tell he was pissed, he just managed to hide the fact in his voice and refused to take it out on her apparently. But she could see it in the way he walked. His fists were clenched, his steps were longer and slightly harsher, implying he wasn't as relaxed as he pretended to be. She knew how to read into these things because it was used by the T&I crew, which her father wanted her to become a part of. Generally, they didn't get to see their prisoners walk around, which made this less helpful to know, but examining people's body language was considered good practice for someone who wanted to join T&I because after becoming adept at it, they could learn the more advanced art of deciphering facial expressions and some of the worst prisoners' poker faces. Naruto, are you alright? Yeah, why would you ask? he responded, as if he didn't know what she was talking about. You and forehead, spill it. Naruto laughed, and it almost sounded genuine, but his heart wasn't really in it. It's nothing, don't worry about it, we just argued a little bit and didn't leave on the best of terms. We'll be fine once we've both had a chance to cool off. Couples argument, She smirked. What about? It's not important, he dodged. And we're not a couple, he added. In due time, Naruto. Yeah right, he muttered, recalling the things she said earlier. Apparently he wasn't quiet enough, or Ino had impeccable hearing. What did she say to you? She demanded, put off by Naruto's mindset, so used to him being the stubborn and confident guy that never let anything get him down to get in his way. When they first made Genin, she had no respect for him, but the grit and determination he displayed to her and everyone else through the Chunin exams and missions that he accompanied Team 10 on, were enlightening. While she liked to consider everyone from their class a friend, she knew that her and Naruto didn't have much of a relationship beyond mere acquaintance, but she liked him for the most part. He was a good guy, loyal to the core, protective over his friends, and he'd been battling the social odds stacked against him since birth, literally. He didn't resent anyone, despite how the first 12 years of his life had gone. He was an amazing person. There's no way she would have taken half as much of the crap he'd put up with. After Sasuke left the village, she'd wondered when Forehead would get over him, like she had, mostly, and when Naruto returned from his training trip with the perv, she figured it would be perfect. Sakura's #1 fanboy had returned to the village, the same fanboy that had been her teammate as Genin, the same fanboy that had matured greatly over the last 2.5 years. He still showed interest in his old crush, likely yearning for an opportunity to be with her after spending so much time away, but as far as Ino could see, nothing had changed at all since before in that regard. He asks her out, she hits him and says no. Naruto hesitated. Okay, look, we're almost there and won't have enough time to talk about this. He deflected. Ino glared at him. Naruto, this conversation isn't going away, I will have time later. Naruto sighed and followed her towards the T&I building, allowing her to lead the way since she was far more familiar with them than he was. I hope she just forgets about this, I don't want to make her mad at Sakura. Besides, if I tell Ino what Sakura said and she yells at Sakura, she'll be even more upset with me. Wait, why am I worried about Sakura getting mad? I'm pissed at Sakura, he reminded himself. Ino stopped to chat with one of the T&I grunts, but Naruto wasn't even paying attention. Why can't she just butt out of it? It would be better for all three of us. I guess this is why Shikamaru always says she's the most stubborn, bossy, troublesome person he knows. Come on, Naruto, Ibiki's not on duty right now, and my dad's in the middle of a weekly meeting between the council and the clan heads. Oh, who's in charge then? Mibu Shinobu, we're heading to his office right now. Okay, guess I'll just leave this to you, you seem to know your way around here real well, he commented. Well, my father wants me to join but I'm undecided. That's pretty cool, T&I is an important division for the village. Ino smiled. Yeah, it is. And they always encourage Yamanakas to join because of our clan jutsu. I'm just not sure I want to take less missions in exchange for sitting around here. There's a lot of stuff to do besides the actual interrogation. Sometimes, a lot of times, they have to try and piece together information they've extracted to make conclusions that must be as accurate as possible, which can get stressful and frustrating, not to mention a Hokage's worst nightmare is always lingering. Paperwork, he laughed. Yup. She joined him in the laughter and led him into Mibu's office, who raised an annoyed eyebrow at the loud pair of unannounced teenagers. Ino Yamanaka, and, you. What do you want? Naruto's expression changed completely and glared at the man, not liking what he assumed the man meant by that. The name's Naruto Uzumaki, you better remember it. I don't really give a shit, you're in my office, unpermitted and disturbing my work. Ino joined Naruto in glaring at the man, and came to his defense. Naruto was laughing because of me, so if you're going to put on the tough guy act you can direct it at over here, she pointed at herself with a thumb. Mibu said nothing, but glared at Ino nonetheless. No, he wasn't glaring at Ino, he was glaring at Inoichi's daughter. Well, Ino spat at the man. Nothing left to say. Wow, you're intimidated by the fact I'm your coworker's daughter, some interrogation officer. Naruto couldn't help but snicker at how handily she disgraced him and turned the man's face red. It was clear that she really pissed him off, but he kept himself in check. Mibu growled at her but held back the temptation to shout vulgarities. This girl was dangerous. Inoichi was a protective father, and if his little darling chose to exaggerate his statements or actions, it was highly likely Mibu's life was on a one-way ticket to hell. He'd worked hard to become the third-ranked T&I director, and he wasn't sacrificing that by pissing off Inoichi Yamanaka's daughter and throwing it all away. What do you want? Ino dropped the picture kunai on the desk. We're assisting with a domestic matter. You may have heard of a guy running around the village peeping on people every day. He threw this kunai at one of the operatives of our mission, she informed professionally, but withheld Jiraiya's name intentionally, because if he chose to comment he might waste their time, and she felt like leaving after the way Mibu acted since they walked in. We need a fingerprint analysis and a cross-check with every shinobi on the rosters. Very well, come by in the tomorrow morning and pick it up. I'll have one of the new guys take care of it. It's a rather basic assignment, he pondered aloud, ignoring the fact a picture was attached to the kunai but felt like he didn't care about it enough to comment. She did say they were tracking down the pervert that had been causing a ruckus across the whole village as of late. Thank you, she said but didn't smile. It was obvious that she disapproved of his attitude towards Naruto, because she just gave him a cold look and turned around to leave, motioning Naruto to follow. She knew Mibu would make sure this was done for them. If he didn't, he'd hear about this from Inoichi and she could tell the man was afraid of that. For an interrogation officer, Mibu wasn't very good at hiding what he was thinking. Thanks Ino, he finally told her, as they stepped out of T&I. It was nice of you to stick up for me, most of the time I just do it myself. She smirked, you said it yourself, I know these guys a lot better than you, and I know how to deal with someone like Mibu. He brought it on himself, he was way out of line acting like that over a little laughter. And, for trying to pin it on you because of, well you know. It's okay, the bastard fox has given me plenty of headaches over the years, it's normal. No it isn't, she frowned. He considers that normal, besides, I didn't mean that, I meant he tried to just act like it was you because who my dad is. Oh, Naruto shrugged, well whatever it was about, thank you. You're welcome, now shall we resume our previous conversation now, she said in a teasing voice and wiped the smile off Naruto's face. You think I'd forget? Not a chance. Ino stepped into Naruto's apartment finding herself mildly surprised, the latter turning around to shut and lock the door. You take much better care of the place than I remember, she remarked, and it smells like strawberries for some reason. Shikamaru and Choji had been in Naruto's apartment once before when they were younger after one of the missions Naruto had been added to their squad for after Sasuke abandoned the village and the team had been suspended. Not that they'd been there very long, but she vividly remembered it as the equivalent of a cesspool. But now she returned, for the first time in years. Naruto hadn't been in the village anyway for a long time and when he had they'd never really hung out, gone were the littered empty styrofoam cups and dirty clothing he'd been too lazy to put in a hamper or something. There were no movie discs out of their cases, draped in dust in a disheveled stack beside the TV, and no annoying aroma that suspiciously smelled like bug repellent. Ah yeah, that's because Shizune and Sakura took turns keeping my apartment in order while Pervy Sage and I were gone. When I got back they told me to keep spraying the freshener until it runs out. Apparently my place didn't smell very good before, he explained, sounding annoyed by the last bit. Ino laughed, well you've been back a while now, and it hasn't reverted back to a pigsty or burnt down or anything so I guess they taught you something, she joked. Oi, I take offense to that, how would you even know what my place had been like? You were never here, I was actually, one time, with Choji and Shikamaru. I'm sorry but my 5-year-old cousin takes better care of her room than you did your apartment. She smirked. Shut up, she just laughed again and plopped down on the couch, making herself comfortable. In all seriousness, you're doing a good job this time. Naruto joined her on the couch, paling slightly as her comment reminded him of something. Thank Grandma Tsunade, she threatened me when Shizune gave me the key she had back. Sakura still has hers, but I don't really mind a teammate having it. Why would Lady Tsunade be upset? She didn't like that her apprentices got stuck fixing the pest issues and cleaning up so much. Well originally, wait, you're telling me you knew about the roaches? From coming over one time. She shrugged it off, I remember smelling the bug killer. Naruto's sweat dropped. Right, okay, so originally, he began again, I gave a 1 key to Granny and 1 key to Sakura. To be honest, I didn't think about this stuff at all but Granny offered to take care of it and then I realized I may as well let Sakura have 1 too since Granny's Hokage and busy and buzzed most of the time. Apparently, after I left, Granny came by and was so disgusted she passed the work on to Shizune and I got chewed out big time when this was brought up when we got back. He scratched the back of his head awkwardly. Ino laughed in his expense before remembering why she came here with him in the first place. Now then, you and forehead girl, what happened? She revived, as this was what she wanted to know ever since the pervert hunting group split up for the day. For whatever reason, Naruto insisted that if she refused to drop it against his wishes as he tried everything he could think of to make her go away, then she'd have to hear the story at his apartment so they weren't in public. He was surprised when she went along with it. He thought she would have pressed on the issue a little longer before just giving up and heading to Sakura herself or go home. Now that he thought about it, it was good he was the one to tell the story. If she got Sakura to talk they'd probably get into it for one reason or another and Naruto didn't want to be the reason why the girls started fighting again. Even though the rivals were best friends again, they still fought over certain things. Usually it was quickly water under the bridge but Naruto didn't want to be the center of it, especially if he turned out to be an exception to the rule like Sasuke had been. Why you want some soda or something? Naruto offered, not particularly wanting to delve into this topic as he rose and headed for the fridge. Whether she accepted or not, he was sure as hell having something. He could use a comforting taste after the day he was having. Maybe after he got Ino off his back he could go train and beat the shit out of some shadow clones, that could be therapeutic. Got any lime? She prompted. One sec, he muttered, rearranging some of the cans as he scoured for that flavor. Aha, last one. He announced, grabbing it along with a cherry for himself. Sitting down again, he passed the lime to her and opened his own, starting to recollect his earlier encounter with Sakura. Flashback, I just told you, you're terrible at lying to me. What are you hiding? Nothing, I swear, I don't even hang out with Ino, just cause I ran into her yesterday and talked for a while doesn't make us best pals or something. Her glare crystallized as she grabbed his arm and pulled them both to a stop, staring at him threateningly. Naruto, the stern reply came and he had a feeling this conversation was about to head straight to hell if he kept playing this game with her. She didn't tell me anything, he reaffirmed, but if I had to guess, she did it so we'd be alone to encourage me into making a move on you, which I didn't plan on doing. Why would Ino care about that? I don't know, maybe she thinks we'd be a good match. Sakura scoffed, yeah right. That did it, something snapped. What the hell is your problem with me, Sakura? The tone of which he used was unlike any tone he'd ever spoken to her before. Yes, Naruto had spoken to her angrily or offended once or twice in the past, but this was beyond that. This was rage, pent-up aggression that was being subconsciously drawn on at her attitude at the very idea of being with him. She acted like the mere thought repulsed her, and it was what he'd wanted on the contrary for years. One can only be rejected so rudely and openly so many times before they feel the need to shake things off their chest. The Pinkett flinched at the cold tone. To say that was un-Naruto-like was understatement of the year. Answer me, you owe me that much. Sakura recovered from her initial surprise and the two engaged in a glaring match before she responded. I don't have any problem with you. What are you? Then why are you disgusted every time I even seem like I'm trying to get closer to you? I do not, she refuted. Oh yeah, he snarled. Well, how the hell am I supposed to take it the way you act? We can't be together, Naruto, we just can't. You're not telling me anything, you're just proving me right. You don't have any actual reasons why we can't give it a shot. We're teammates, it's unprofessional. Bullshit. Do you think I'm stupid? That didn't stop you from chasing Sasuke. He pointed a damning finger at her. That's not the same. How? I was in love with Sasuke before we even graduated. You were just infatuated with me at the time, she was sure to say, and, at the time, in order to acknowledge she believed it was possible he actually loved her now, but not back then. What kind of logic is that? Naruto deadpanned. It was rather strange of him to swear so much but he didn't give a damn at the moment. If I was just infatuated with you, the same goes for you and Ino with the bastard. You can't just say it's different. She frowned at her teammate. Don't compare Ino and I when it comes to Sasuke, she was only infatuated too, just like you with me. Oh right, Naruto rolled his eyes. Everyone's crush was infatuation except yours. It's true, she insisted. Ino moved on from Sasuke after he left the village, she got over it. I didn't, that's all the proof I need. I never got over you, so you're contradicting yourself. He yelled, so mad he didn't even care what embarrassing things he was admitting to her. Like it mattered, she'd known he liked her for years. You haven't gotten over it because, she stopped herself. Because, she averted his gaze, not really wanting to say this to him, but decided he was so mad already she would never have a more appropriate time to admit her opinion. You're immature, and there it was, what she really thought of his feelings towards her. For some reason, actually hearing her say that stung him into silence, and he settled for just staring at her. Listen, Naruto, I didn't want to hurt you like this but you flew off the handle. I won't date a teammate, period. The Uzumaki turned away, but had one thing to say before splitting up to work on their so-called mission. You'd do it for Sasuke. Flashback end. I was so pissed off. The Uzumaki shouted in the present, I can't believe she said that to me. Immature. Yeah, so maybe I was immature when we all became genin. Maybe I was behind her and Sasuke when it came to social things, who was he kidding? Sasuke was about as social as box of rocks, so what? Did I have anyone to shape me as a kid? I was gone for 2.5 years, and all she sees is some dumb 12-year-old that was trying so hard to be noticed and liked, so hard to not be lonelier than, he trailed off, realizing the train of thought he was having could get a little embarrassing and not to mention awkward to ride along with Ino, who he didn't know that well in the first place. Naruto. The male blonde averted his eyes. What? He murmured in reply, sipping his soda. What is wrong with you, Sakura? It made absolutely no sense to her. Naruto, the guy who went from least popular, dead last, annoying moron to being a hero to the village in his battle with Gaara, a friend to everyone in the Rookie Nine, or at least Ino liked to say all of them were friends with one another, that was likely the strongest of their class after spending 2.5 years training with Jiraiya and already having that ridiculous chakra reserve of his. On top of that, he was perhaps the nicest person she knew. Sure, he could be rude as hell, and had a history of saying things other people wouldn't say as well as disrespecting people of high stature on purpose such as referring to the 5th Hokage as, grandma, or, Granny, but if you looked past the surface, he was as good of a person there was in the village. She thought back to the Chunin exams. Back then, Naruto had no reputation beyond his prankster status and being the dead last academy loser as a shinobi. He kept on surprising her, well, not just her, but everyone with his performance. Her view on him changed a lot during those days, as both a shinobi and a person. Flashbacks. Aw man, why does Kiba get to be so lucky? Choji complained, reaching into a chip bag. No kidding, she agreed, standing to the side of her two teammates as they stared at the monitor. Kiba Inuzuka vs Naruto Uzumaki. This shouldn't take long, Shikamaru commented, yawning at the prospect of it alone. Naruto was an alright guy, he didn't hate him like most people seemed to, but to pretend the guy had a chance against Kiba was pointless. The match started and Kiba had Naruto on the ground within seconds, and appeared to already be unconscious after a single blow from the Inuzuka's taijutsu move. That sure was fast, Ino commented. I guess Kiba didn't want to waste any energy on him, Shikamaru analyzed. HMPT, Kiba snorted, his eyes shutting coolly as he just grinned at how pathetically easy that was, a lone tooth sticking out over his bottom lip. Proctor, call the match. The kid's already done for. On the floor, Naruto's eyes reopened as Kiba started to walk away. Naruto pulled himself to his feet, actually laughing at his opponent who snapped his head around in surprise. Is that all you got? Naruto asked, raising his head to stare at the Inuzuka with a wide smirk, wiping blood from his face. I was just checking you out, he explained, and frankly, you hit like a girl. Ino crossed her arms and huffed in annoyance, thinking to herself, Naruto you idiot. I wouldn't go around saying that if I were you, I could beat you with one hand tied behind my back. You'd be better off sending that puppy to fight me. Kiba growled in irritation at the insults. I'd be careful what I wished for if I were you Naruto, Akamaru probably wouldn't even need my help. Good boy, come here, Kiba called, laughing victoriously at the unconscious blonde boy lying on the floor. Akamaru rushed towards him per his request, but rather than accept the pets and rubs his owner was going to offer, he leapt at Kiba and bit his arm. Whow, Akamaru, Ino, Shikamaru, Choji and everyone else in the arena gaped at what was happening in confusion before Akamaru's form transformed back into Naruto's, who released Kiba's wrist and stepped back in a coughing fit. You smell worse than the dog, he shouted accusingly. That remark shook Ino from her shock as she actually had to stifle her laughter to hear her teammates' analysis. It turned out the real Akamaru was hidden by the body on the floor that had actually been a shadow clone. Smart, Shikamaru commended, though he could have done something more useful than biting Kiba's arm. What do you expect? Naruto's always been a show-off, Choji reminded. True, the Nara agreed. Ino said nothing, she just stared at her fellow blonde with interest. It was like Naruto was just messing around with Kiba, waiting to eliminate him in a cool way, as the guy was a bit of an attention whore in her opinion. Could he really be that much better? Uzumaki barrage, Naruto shouted as he delivered the final blow personally, sending Kiba to the floor and knocking him out, then landing and dispelling his clones with a triumphant expression on his face as he clamped one hand into a fist and stared at it, lost in whatever thoughts he was having. Wow, who would have thought he could beat Kiba? Shikamaru exclaimed in amazement. This was the exact opposite of what he expected to happen. What an upset, Choji joined. Ino hummed in agreement with an interested smile on her face. When did Naruto get so good? He was almost cool during that fight. And he won. Seriously, who actually expected him to win? She shot a glance at a celebrating Sakura who was at the very least happy for her teammate. She and Kakashi had been the only people that even gave the Uzumaki a chance in this fight. She idly wondered if Sasuke would have expected this if he was still in the room. Wait Naruto, if you fight now you will both be disqualified. While his actions are most unyouthful, you must not be too hasty. I will defeat Neji when the time arises, but if you are given the chance before me, that is fine as well. Okay, bushy brows, Naruto conceded, his glare not budging off Neji's face. Ino watched this all go down from the upper level with her teammates, horrified by the extent Hinata's own cousin was willing to go to hurt her. Why, that jerk. How can he do something like that to his own family? Shikamaru and Choji said nothing, though agreeing with her, they were utterly speechless at the moment. Their former classmate had just been nearly killed by her own clanmate, and would be dead if not for the interference of the Jonin senseis. She found herself gazing down at the Uzumaki who nearly disqualified himself in rage, wanting to attack Neji and avenge her. Naruto raised back to his feet, with a palm full of blood, Hinata's blood, and glared at Neji with a look in her eyes that strangely reminded her of Sasuke. She could barely make out what he was saying. I vow to win, he declared, bringing his fist up determinedly. Ino knew by now that Hinata had a crush on Naruto, but Naruto had always appeared completely oblivious to it and she had thought that was still the case. But, he hadn't acted like they were friends or anything. Was he just this protective because Neji crossed the line against a comrade? Don't get me wrong, Ino was pissed off too, but she had no instinct to run down there and pick a fight with the previous class, Rookie of the Year. Neji however scoffed at what he perceived to be a fool's ignorance. Vow whatever you please, it won't change anything because my victory is bound by fate. Due to the absence of Sasuke Uchiha, the first match between him and Gaara Sabaku will be postponed for the time being. Sakura sighed with relief, who was sitting in the stands with Ino. At least they aren't disqualifying him. Ino could see the worry etched all over her childhood friend's face, worry for Sasuke obviously. Nearly getting disqualified was nothing compared to the fact his opponent was the insane red-headed freak from Suna. In addition to that, her other teammate had to face Neji. Instead, we will begin with the second match. Naruto Uzumaki and Neji Hyuga, please remain here, the rest of you go to the waiting area, Genma Shiranui instructed. I heard about this guy. That Hyuga kid's supposed to be some kind of genius they say. One civilian started up, yeah I've heard some stuff too, he's supposed to be like the strongest genin alive, even more capable than that Uchiha kid. Forehead, do you think he has a chance? Ino prompted. Truthfully, she was curious about Naruto. Somehow he was able to make that ridiculous amount of clones, which Asuma-sensei claimed was impossible for a normal ninja, only citing that Naruto was a special case, managed to pull off a major upset against Kiba in which he showed a lot of intelligence to use Kiba's abilities against him, and radiated confidence. Unlike their academy days, he had the ability to back up that confidence which made him a lot less, well, lame. Yes, Sakura responded without hesitation. Ino had been hoping for something more insightful than that. Well, I don't know, you know Naruto a lot better than I do, I just saw that one fight. But everyone seems to believe Neji is unbeatable. Sakura smiled. They're wrong, counting Naruto out is a mistake. Neji panted, should have known it was a clone. After all, they are your specialty. You can change, you know. Naruto stared down at him. After all, you're not a failure like me, he told him with a slight smirk. I can't believe he did it, Ino said in the stands, amazed, in the company of a celebrating Sakura. Ino would never see Naruto the same again. In 2 Chunin exam fights, he'd changed her view on him in almost every way imaginable. His skills as a ninja obviously, beating Neji meant he could beat her, so how could she not see him as strong? He'd showcased bravery, fighting tooth and nail to take Neji down even after his tenketsu had been closed. He'd proven to be a loyal and protective comrade with his reaction to what had happened to Hinata, someone he didn't even really know apparently. He began both fights as a supreme underdog, almost laughably so in both before they got started, but he tuned everyone out, and defiantly walked away winning both. He was Naruto Uzumaki, and he was anything but the dead last. End flashback. Ino hadn't seen anything that he did during the invasion, but she heard the stories of how Naruto managed to defeat Gaara and apparently change him as a person, much like how he'd changed Neji during their fight. On the occasions that Naruto had been in addition to Team 10 a few times after Sasuke abandoned the village, she'd worked with him and seen him do more things and got to know him a little more than before, but that was more than 2.5 years ago. He'd matured a lot since then and gotten even stronger. How could Sakura see him the way she does? Ino. Naruto snapped his fingers a couple times in front of her face. What were you going to say? He asked once he had her attention. Sorry, got lost there for a moment, she apologized, opening her drink finally. It's all right. He paused to look at the floor as he sighed. You're probably mad about what she said about you, right? I understand. If you want to leave and blow off some steam, go ahead. I'll be fine. Don't feel like you're obligated to stay with me or anything, he finished and looked at her with an assuring smile. That smile is so fake, she thought to herself. I'm fine, mad at her, but fine. You're the one who needs to blow off steam, she said, shooting him a sympathetic smile. I'll leave you alone if you want, or I can stay for a while, it's up to you. Naruto was surprised by that. He expected the Yamanaka to get furious over Sakura's comparison of Ino's crush being infatuation, and her own being love, but the blonde girl currently occupying the couch with him only seemed mildly annoyed by it and more sorry for him instead. Maybe she felt bad that this was kind of her fault. She did try to get him to make another move for Sakura, and that's what led to all this in the first place, technically. But who was he to question it? She offered to keep him company while he was down. Almost no one ever did that for him his entire life. Just Iruka, and after the failed Sasuke retrieval mission, Sakura, but she'd been in even more pain than him over that, so it was more like a shared attempt at coping with his betrayal than anything else. And I was just going to say, she's wrong, Naruto. You were immature a few years ago maybe, but we've all grown up a lot since the academy and you don't deserve that label at all. She told him honestly. Seriously, Sakura had spent way more time with Naruto since he returned from the training trip, and she couldn't see how much he'd changed. Ino had only run across him a few times and actually had to admit he was probably the one out of the Konoha 11 that she would pick to earn a Most Improved award. Not only as a shinobi but as a person too. And that was really saying something, because look at Neji. After a second of consideration, she felt the need to voice that thought. It might cheer him up to hear a conflicting opinion of what Sakura claimed, especially from another girl his age. If you ask me, you've grown more than any of us. Thanks Ino, He smiled, and this time it was genuine. She could see the appreciation in his eyes. I'm not going to kick you out, he told her, wanting to make that clear, but you don't have to stay, either. I'm just going to watch a little TV and relax a bit, then go train like hell later. Ino chuckled. She hadn't necessarily expected the TV part, but she just knew he was going to say the last thing. Fine, but I decide what we watch. She insisted, snatching the remote off his table despite his protest. Ooh, you've got the shopping network, she stated excitedly after rummaging through a few channels and discovering this and stopping flipping through them, waiting for the commercials to pass. We're definitely not watching this. Why not? She asked, taking a drink of her lime soda. Because, he deadpanned, it's lame. I'm a guy, none of us find that entertaining. Please, she tried, giving him the old puppy dog eyes move in a cute voice. Naruto snorted, what am I? Pervy sage, I won't be manipulated that easily. We'll see about that, she shouted in her head, be-boot Naruto, I don't have this channel anymore at home. She complained in a disappointed but still obviously manipulative voice, can't you do me this little favor? She asked him in cutest pitch she could muster, one that she usually only utilized on her father to get her way while also putting a delicate hand on his shoulder for good measure. Naruto tensed upon contact. He still wasn't quite used to other people touching him after growing up by himself so long, but quickly relaxed. It was just Ino. She wouldn't do anything to him. Besides, she was playing games. For the record, I know what you're trying to do to me. But fine, have fun. I'll just go train now instead of later. She said she didn't have the channel anymore, so what the hell, he could leave her in his apartment to watch her stupid programs. She'd enjoy it, and he liked making his friends happy. In the meantime, he'd get some work in, because there was no way in hell he was watching a series of boring shopping shows. She watched as he stood up and walked into the kitchen to toss his empty soda can in the trash. Wait, you're leaving me here? She asked. Yeah, I don't mind, just turn the TV off when you're done and lock the door on your way out, he ordered as he started towards the door. Ino blinked. He trusted her enough to stay alone in his home. While that was a little surprising, she shrugged it off as Naruto being Naruto. He'd probably let any of his friends hang around his place if there was a purpose for it. Without warning, she jumped off the couch and hugged the unsuspecting Genin from behind before he could turn the knob. Her arms were crossed over his chest with her hands resting on his sides. She tiptoed up a little to prop her chin up on his shoulder as the Uzumaki stood deathly frozen. She could feel how his entire body locked up in tension just from her embrace, which both stroked her ego and bothered her at the same time. On one hand, it was always nice to have that effect on a guy. On the other hand, well, she didn't like that it was that easy to put someone she considered a friend in a state of panic just because of a hug. Naruto was experiencing a feeling he'd rarely dealt with in his life. The other times hadn't been with someone he actually knew, but rather during the training trip with Pervy Sage. He did his best to block those memories out, but one distinctive memory remained from when he had went into a club in search of the damn perv and a drunk lady with a pair of D-cups came onto him and wouldn't leave him be. Let's just say with what she was wearing, one didn't need a Byakugan to get an idea of what she would look like under the sheets. That woman kept ignoring his protests and insisting he dance with her, which he didn't even know how to do. In fact, he kept accidentally stepping on her toes, but after every yelp of pain she just giggled at his clumsiness, said something about how cute it was and more or less told him she wanted to get him laid. He tried to disengage and run away without doing anything physical to her, but she sensed his anxiety and pulled him closer to her. Hell, she smashed those D's into A's against him and it drove him insane. Thank God she was so drunk that she eventually passed out in his arms so he could just leave her in some random chair. This was thankfully nothing like that, but this was the first person to pull him into an embrace like this since then, and Ino was far from ugly. Like this, he could easily smell her perfume without even turning around, and she too had her assets pressed against him a little, but not in a way that was weird or unusual in a hug like the stranger did. He knew he probably should just relax a little. It was just Ino. She wasn't going to do anything to him. She didn't even feel anything for him like that. If she did, she wouldn't have been trying to get him together with Sakura. No, he managed. She laughed softly in his ear. I'm just thanking you. Geez, what were you thinking? Is the pervert rubbing off on you? She teased. He rotated his head to glare at the presence resting on his shoulder. Don't even. She released him and rested her hands on her hips with an amused smirk. I don't know if I can, Naruto. How do I know that you aren't secretly just like him and I just accidentally built up a lot of tension for you to deal with later? Naruto's face turned red as the strawberries his apartment smelled of. I'm leaving now, the embarrassed Uzumaki grunted. Bye, she said as he shut the door. Well, she said to herself, that was fun. And it was. His embarrassment was amusing. Even if Ino hadn't known him a long time, she would still find it painfully obvious that he didn't have much experience in the romance department based on the fact she could literally immobilize the poor guy. Naruto wasn't shy. As a kid, he'd been by far the most annoyingly boisterous of the Rookie Nine and he wasn't afraid of anyone or anything. This was the guy who asked Sakura out more times than either Ino or Sakura asked Sasuke out. This was the guy who openly called Jiraiya, pervy sage, Tsunade, granny, and Anko Midarashi, crazy snake lady. But when it came to some minor physical contact with a girl, he was only a little better than Hinata. He even stuttered her name out. At least he didn't faint. She chuckled aloud at her mental joke. If Sakura would have just said yes to him, he wouldn't be like that. She frowned at the thought of Sakura again. Her best friend's reflection on their past was that Ino's affection for a certain Uchiha was only infatuation. To be fair, Ino no longer knew what to think of her feelings for Sasuke as a young girl. She didn't really know the guy, despite her attempts to get dates and acknowledgement from her crush. But still, to make that comparison and just dismiss hers like that while Sakura continues to cling to the feelings and wish for some fairy tale ending where she and Sasuke had to restore the clan, after the guy betrayed the village for Orochimaru's teachings, well, let's just say Ino wanted to be mad but felt like the insanity of it was just too much for her to care about the insulting insinuation. She glanced up at a clock hanging on one of Naruto's walls and realized the other blonde left half an hour ago, and all she'd done is sit on the couch and think about Naruto and Sakura. She mentally slapped herself and began watching the programs Naruto had been so kind to allow her to stay for, but allowed one last thought to slip through the crevice of her active brain, shutting off to relax. That was pretty sweet of him. It's too bad Forehead's being such an idiot about this. He'd probably cater to her whim without her even asking for anything. I wish someone like that had their eyes set on me. Ino got lost while staring at the television, not even realizing she just more or less thought she would enjoy having Naruto's attention. 4 hours later, "What's the matter?" Tsuki asked. Sensing Naruto was a bit troubled. "You're only on your 5th bowl," he observed. "You've been here over 20 minutes. Naruto chuckled. "You got me." Tsuki smirked. "If you need to talk about something, I'm here for ya. Although, there may be some topics Ayame is better suited for given your age," he admitted. "Oh yeah, like what?" Tsuki shrugged. "I just don't really understand your generation that well. It's the problem with being old, I guess. Anyway, if you want to talk about it, just holler," he said and turned around to take care of some dishes. "Thanks." Naruto called out to the old man for what it was worth. He just didn't feel like sharing his day with either of them, so opted not to. If he told them the things Sakura said that morning, they might hold a bit of a grudge. As Naruto's friends, they were slightly protective because they knew the Uzumaki was a very disliked person earlier in his life. He didn't want that. No, today's encounter was painful, but he still wouldn't give up on Sakura. She did care for him, just not in the way he would like. He could work with that, he could build on it, and eventually he would make her see that she was wrong about him. He couldn't help to find it funny that Ino disputed her former rival on the matter completely. Maybe Sakura was just having a hard time separating the new, more mature and older him from the younger kid she knew so well as a teammate. If that was the case, he just needed time. This would all work out. He had to stay positive, and no one was better at remaining positive than Naruto Uzumaki. He left his money on the counter and called out for Tsuki before starting his walk back to the apartment. On his way back, his mind drifted the girl he left behind in his home. "I never got to know her that well. Maybe I should do something to change that. She's been really nice and a good friend these couple days." In the academy, Ino wasn't exactly nice to Naruto. Not that very many people were back then, but her rivalry with Sakura gave her reasons to pick on him since he was always open about the crush. That, and almost everyone picked on him anyways for one reason or another. As Genin, she came around to tolerating him much more after he showed a lot of improvement during those Chunin exams. But at the time, he'd always dismissed her as Shikamaru and Choji's bossy and troublesome teammate. Plus she had that annoying and common crush for Sasuke, but to be honest he was rooting for her on that front since it would mean Sakura couldn't have him and the Pinkett might finally look at him differently. Even though he considered her a friend, just like the others from the Konoha 11, he never thought very much of her or got to know her that well. He couldn't think of a single occasion where they did something together without someone else being around from one of their teams. Until today anyway. Yep, he really needed to devote some time to her. He just wanted to since she'd been so nice. She stood up to that Mibu Shinobu guy in T&I and even apparently wanted to see him and Sakura get together, which blew up in his face this morning, but still, and he had to admit she'd been fun company. He idly wondered how long she stuck around his place as he reached the apartment and turned the knob, frowning as he found it unlocked. "Damn it, Ino, I told you to lock it on your way out." While it was true that his life was far better than when he was younger, there were some civilians that may still be up to vandalizing the place. Some of the more radical ones who liked to blame him for the loss of their loved ones 15 years ago. Very few people were so screwed up in the head about the fox that actually took action against him, but there were a couple incidents in his life where his apartment had graffiti all over it. The second time the vandals did so inside his home, and he'd never forgotten to lock the door since. He honestly had no clue if anyone still hated him enough to do that since he'd gained some prestige within the village since then as a ninja, but he'd rather not find out. Walking in, He was surprised to see a pretty blonde girl sitting on his couch, splitting her attention away from the TV to acknowledge him with a wave and a smile. "Welcome home, Naruto." "Thanks, I guess," he murmured in reply. "I've been gone for more than 4 hours, you know." He then noticed the phone sitting next to her and raised an eyebrow. "You answered my phone for me." "What?" She looked at him oddly, and then remembered she hadn't put it back yet. "Oh, no, I just ordered something a little bit ago, don't worry about it." "Ordered? You're still watching the damn shopping net? Oh my god." He blinked, finally shooting a glance at the TV. "Ino. Really? In my apartment? Well, I can't watch it at home." She defended herself. "Besides, some of these are really cute, even if it's more for the man in the relationship anyway." On the TV were 3 beautiful women in their mid-20s modeling lingerie that Naruto just knew would put pervy Sage in a coma if he were watching. He failed to stop the blood from gushing out of his nose, which stained the carpet, and he just knew that would either be really hard to get out later or he would just not do anything about it. His inner Shikamaru told him it would be too much work for something so insignificant, and he'd dealt with worse housing issues than a rug stain, so he'd probably give in to it. Ino seemed to find this highly amusing for some reason and turned to him deviously. "Which one do you like the most, Naruto?" What? Come on," she demanded, "you trained with the old pervert. Are you telling me you can't handle looking at 3 half women on TV long enough to make an opinion on fashion?" She teased. "Of course I can." "Then tell me, which one?" Naruto blushed. "Why, are you going to actually buy it or something?" "That's kind of weird, Ino." Ino smirked. "Oh, are you suggesting you would like to see me in one of those?" she asked, sticking her thumb at the screen in question. Naruto gulped. This little arrangement he offered to let her enjoy the channel she supposedly doesn't have anymore was seriously biting him in the "No," he denied. "I don't think things like that about my friends." She smiled. "It's okay to be a man, Naruto," she winked. In her head she was laughing her off right now. She was having a lot of fun embarrassing him like this for the second time that day. "But I don't." He grit his teeth. "And if it'll make you drop this topic, I guess I like the one that looks like it's made of silk the best." Rather than drop the subject, Ino just made a cat call and smiled as she remarked, "You have good tastes. I hope you're able to get whatever woman you end up with to wear it." She laughed at him as he sat down next to her on the couch looking ready to die. He was so petrified by this conversation that he looked sunburned. "I'll see you tomorrow, all right? And lighten up. It's just underwear. It's not like you walked in on me trying something like that on, so don't be so embarrassed. It's not like you didn't know us girls wear that kind of stuff." "Yeah, whatever." She giggled on her way out. "See ya, Naruto, thanks for letting me crash." After she shut the door, he rushed over to the window and made sure she was really leaving, and once he was satisfied she wasn't up to anything else, he sat back down and kicked his shoes off, gazing at the TV. Maybe this channel didn't SCK so much